Mark Mendiola joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Happy Chris, happy Jason, buenas.
How you doing? Long time.
Yeah, we're doing good. There's just a lot of things going on. Of course, there's tremendous amount of things going on with
Yeah.
with our government and with our people. So I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and just kind of give you an update of what's going on in the Department of Education. I'm pretty sure our board has been quite busy actually a couple weeks ago, and we're a lot of new members, so we're getting updated. Most of us have taken our ethics training, and we have a boardsmanship training coming up to talk about just operations for the board. So there's a lot of things that we're basically doing, but one thing that we've been actually just kind of been consistent all along through this entire pandemic was we've been doing this healthy in school update briefing from the superintendent as to the things that we're doing to ensure that our schools are safe and that we're operating at the best we can considering all the situation we're in. And so I just want the community to know that we're kind of a good sized district for we have about close to 30 some thousand kids. We have about 4,000 employees and about 41 schools that we're operating. So when we make a decision, we got to make sure that we vet those decisions properly and we get all the stakeholders involved to just so that we try and get as much information as out there as possible, so that accurate information, so that we reduce the anxiety of a lot of our families. And so as of late, like I said, we continue to hold these briefings, and our board has been very consistent in the past, even before the pandemic, where our meetings are online. We go Facebook Live, and thanks to our former PIO, Issa, she was the one that kind of put that out there for us. So we're able to continue on with that, just to inform the community of the tough decisions and, with the issues that's facing the department. And our superintendent has been at the forefront. I believe he meets with you folks on a weekly basis to kind of give you an update. Yeah. But for the board's perspective, our work in terms of policy, in terms of vetting and ensuring that we provide the superintendent the guidance necessary, I think it's important because we come from all different cross sections of our community. There's 5 of us that's elected, and 4 of course, are appointed by the governor. And so, there's a lot of things we needed to take into consideration. And if you recall, Chris, when we first started this, we had 3 modes of learning. The take home, face-to-face, and of course, online. And so the last board meeting, a couple board meetings ago, actually, we decided that we're going to pivot and move to only 2 modes of learning, which is online and face-to-face. And so I'm pleased to note, just share with you that, through the help and support of the governor's office, we were able to get these, the technology devices into the hands of our students. So we have about 1,300 students so far that have picked up those MiFi devices that they could use at home. And in addition to that, we've also stood up these community resource centers out in the schools that provides the opportunity for our students to go to their schools and their community schools to get the help and support that they need. We understand that it's kind of, it's very challenging, but we're lagging behind, but we're really pushing. So when we send out the notice, Chris, to go to face-to-face or online, we had about 80% of the respondents said that they are going to go back face-to-face. So obviously the community is starting to feel a little bit safer with the vaccinations that we've been doing, our employees. And then of course, now the governor has included the age, I think it was 16 and above now, right, for those who take the vaccine. So obviously that is playing a major part in, I guess, in releasing some of the anxiety from our folks.
And Mark,
yes, sir.
We had a comment here, because I know you guys are getting the ESF. There was like ESF 1, ESF 2, but how much of the 660 mil is DOE going to get? And then could you just run down the different dollar amounts of the federal aid that you received recently?
Yeah, so basically, the first initial funding that came through, and these are all federal dollars that's clearly directed over to the Department of Education through the US Ed. And so initially we started out about 40 million. That was the first round. And that also included the support that we provided to the private schools. And so I think 10 million of that. but there was a certain percentage that was also given to the governor for her to kind of support what we were doing for the for the reopening of the schools, right? And just moving in that direction. And so that's been very key. And then fast forwarding to this one, initially we where the announcement came out that we're looking at about $180 million that they were going to provide for the Department of Education through US Ed for the reopening of schools. And then superintendent I think he announced it on your station that that it's actually going to be 287 million, but this is spread over a period of time. So one of the things that's required by the Department of Education is that, or US Ed, is that we go through our stakeholders and we get input from these folks to basically ask them what type of support or what type of activities are needed for the use of these funds. And so I know that the superintendent, we've had Chris many years ago, I don't know if you recall, it's called the deferred maintenance costs. I think that thing ran up to about close to $100 million. That's to basically upgrade and modernize some of our current school facilities. And so, of course, when this notice came down, the Budget and Finance Committee, where I am a member, and also Dr. Mary Okada, we gave the superintendent basically from the committee standpoint, said, hey, give us your top priorities in terms of the funding that we're looking at in terms of helping to support the schools. And please note that this funding has to be tied to, the reopening of schools and making it safe and a healthy school, right? And so that 287, we're going to encourage the community to participate. And we've been doing that in the first 2 rounds of funding. We've actually had parent meetings. We've had stakeholder meetings from the north, south, and from the different districts out there. And so we're able to provide that back to US Ed, and we've been able to get some of those fundings coming in. But one of the toughest things, Chris, and as you got to be honest with folks, is of course, our procurement process, right? And when you're dealing with federal funding, you got to be very careful of how that money is spent and use it for its intended purpose. And so, one of the things with the department that we stand very proud on is that we had another clean audit. And so that's a major accomplishment for our department. I think this is 7 years already that we've done this clean audit. And that just shows, that our federal partners, that the government of Guam and DOE in particular has no question costs or material weaknesses, and that we are managing our resources, both local and federal. And I just want to thank also our public auditor BJ, because he actually really pushed the envelope, pushed the issue, and said, hey, everybody's got to submit their audits in on time. And so the Department of Education was able to do that, and we're able to come out with a good, solid footing on our financials. So that's going to go a long ways, because it shows that we're handling our financial resources. And our ultimate goal on that end, Chris, is to really get off this high risk status where the federal government has a third party overseeing some of our
Right,
how we spend
yeah.
our
But
dollars.
when though, Chair? Because it's 7 years of clean audits. You would think that would be good enough for this
Yeah.
third party
So Chris,
or the
yeah.
feds.
So since I've come on board, Chris, the previous federal administration, for the Trump administration, we had a direct line to the Secretary of Ed and the Assistant Secretary Frank Brogan, and man, we really moved a lot, because at that point the board was not really involved. But I asked the superintendent, I said, the board really needs to get involved in this, because we're using local dollars to pay for these third-party fiduciary. And when I first came on board, I think we're paying to the tune of about $4 million, and we got it down to like about $2 million that we're paying.
A what?
But
a year?
Yeah, it's basically for the oversight of the
Right,
third party, which
yeah.
is a requirement from the federal side. But you're
Yes.
absolutely right. Most of the work right now has been transitioned to our department, and we're making the case. And so coming out with a strong audit just lets them know that, hey, yes, the Department of Education is ready. And so we've submitted a plan, of course, the superintendent, and then we have our internal audit, Frank Cooperners. We're just pushing through, and our goal really right now with this new administration, we're starting the transition. So we've already made contacts with the new leadership of the US Ed, but there are still senior members that are civil employees with the US Ed that has basically provided us the opportunity to continue on and not lose the historical knowledge and data, with the transition of their team.
Mark, so I know obviously is it the feds call, or how much say does the third party group have in telling the federal government like, yeah, go Guam GDOE, they're good now. They can do their own thing.
Yeah, so really there are contractors and we're required by the third party, but really what it is just the department, they have no real say in terms of saying whether we are ready to go or not. They can state their opinions, but
Yeah.
of course it's the department. We got to be ready because many years ago, Chris, if you recall, man, the books were not auditable and there was just a lot of inventory and assets that were missing from our department. Now we have a tracking system. We have, people in the helm of the department now and the stability. And one of the things that was very key was stability in the leadership of the Department of Education. And so, of course, our superintendent now is the longest serving superintendent in this chief state executive officers group, I think serving at 8 years now within the department. So it's just a stability, Chris. And when the superintendent and of course the board and our community stakeholders are all in tandem saying, hey, look, we've come a long ways. We need to get off of this thing. It's a strong case. But of course, one of the things about working with the federal government, sometimes it can be very slow and glacial in terms of making a decision. But we've been making the case, and we have an internal audit office that has been, beefed up, and we're pushing. They gave us a plan, which is the reevaluation plan, and our goal is to get them to, now that the new administration is coming in, I think over 100 days, we're really going to push for us to be at the table again, whether it be by virtual or going and visiting with them. Because aside from the federal dollars that we're getting from the support for the pandemic, we're also managing about close to $60 to $70 million in federal funding for our services that we provide to our kids. So there is a tremendous amount of money that's going to be coming to the department. And our goal right now with the superintendent is to put these plans in place that it's sustainable. We don't want to just buy these things right now and then come 10 years or 5 years from now, all the pandemic money has been utilized, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do with all these? What are we going to do with all these sneeze guards?
Right. And so those are the things that, we definitely have to take into consideration because, especially with the air conditioning, the quality of air, right? Yeah. And so we definitely got to start looking at that. And of course, we've also tried to look at alternative energy options to reduce the cost of our utilities. And so one of the biggest things right now, Chris, that our board is focused on, and Robert Crisostomo is leading that effort, that is the strategic plan for the Department of Education. To dust that off, there was a lot of work that's gone into it, and we're revisiting it, updating it, and we're making the transition because of the current situation we're in, and then what are we going to look forward. So it's primarily our curriculum, the safety of our schools, the facilities. Those are the themes that we're kind of looking at. There's two more that we're also looking at in terms of our strategic plan. And then once we develop the department, we're going to send it out and get the input from our community. We're going to engage as much as possible, Chris. And that's the key for ensuring that, the department is held accountable for the resources and the decisions we make. And I just want to, for a plug, because of the gaps in education, with the current structure that we're set up, please invite our community for summer school. There's a summer school opportunity for our kids that need that additional support. So registration is open until May 7th, and we're all going to have summer school in all the schools. So that's another, added value for some of our kids that are falling behind or fall behind because of, the situation that we were dealing with at the time. So, obviously we're confident in the leadership of our department, from the superintendent to Deputy Joe Sanchez, Erica Cruz, and Zenny Nace. Of course, these are the people at the top, but there's people that have been working in the background that have been really pushing hard to get these supports out. Our federal programs, Administrator Ike Santos, and the team that has been just really trying to get all the materials out to the schools. And I just got to say, Chris, ever since, if I can use that term, our nurses have been tasked and tapped to provide support, as well as our social workers to provide mental health support. So the Department of Education has been doing its part in also contributing to the combat of this, this virus. The other thing too, that is another component that I just want to give a shout out to our people, Chris, are the people that are helping with the food distribution. We have our school aides, we have our administrators, and boy, I gotta say, we have top-notch administrators out there that really care for our community and our schools. And I just want to thank them because they come up with their ideas on how to improve, whether it be workflow or whether it be the curriculum side, but they are the key outreach for our district out in our community. So I just want to extend my to these folks. If we don't say it enough, we're saying it out loud that, we're really pushing together as one department, one agency, GDOE.
What's the dynamic of this new board, Mark, now that you guys are a few months into doing the work?
You know what? We got some seasoned members. Of course, we got Maria Gutierrez. We got Pete Addo, who's been on the board many times, Lou Beneventi. These guys bring the historical knowledge. A lot of it, when they say, back in the day, we've tried this, and it really adds to the conversation. And then you got, really good people who are experts in their field, I believe. We have a very awesome parent representative, Ms. Carlin Borja. She has two children, I believe, with special needs. And so she adds that value to the conversation when dealing with a child with special needs. I have a child with special needs as well. We have Ms. Felly, who was a previous administrator, or teacher at the school system. We have Robert Chrysostomo, who was a previous administrator, but currently a principal at a private school. Right. And then, of course, Dr. Mary Okada, who brings a wealth of knowledge in dealing with the federal government, also dealing with the way we deal with the federal government and the way we deal with our finances. And so she provides that insight and that guidance. And so it's a big, we come from a good cross section of our community in terms of our, where, and how we contributed. But the 5 elected board members, of course, we go through that process, and then the appointees of the governor. But I can say that this board, in terms of respecting each other, respecting each other's position, we also have to have Dr. Ron McNitch, who is also from the business community. So also getting his input in there and understanding the political landscape too has been helpful for us. But we, Chris, in terms of our board, it's a great makeup of our community, and we all have different expertise. We all bring something to the table. And so, we're just fortunate enough that, we have an open dialogue with our superintendent, and that, if there's an issue that needs to be raised, whether it be an operational issue, we direct it to him. But if it's a policy issue, that's where the conversation for the department really needs to focus on long-term, big issue type of policies for the department. For instance, like our curriculum side of piece. But the strategic plan that the board is assisting in the development of is really going to drive the department for the next couple of years. And there's a lot of interesting data, Chris, in terms of our graduation rates, our students that are able to go out and complete globally once they graduate from our schools, and a great partnership with GCC and the University of Guam, because now we're starting to track that data as to where our kids are going, whether they're going into the workforce, they're going into the military, or they're going into higher ed. So we have a graduation coming up this couple of weeks. I'm going to be the proud parent of a graduate. My first baby is going to be graduating from Teason High. So go Titans. And, we just look forward to our students going out there and being able to further and be successful in their careers. But, that's the long answer. I'm confident that this board's going to do everything in its power to ensure that we ask the tough questions, but also provide solutions to the challenges that we face within the Department of Education.
Can you just run through the graduation plans for the department?
From the briefing that we got, and usually we kind of get a briefing a little bit closer, but a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be, we're going to continue with the grad and go type format. And that was discussed and vetted with our principals, our administrators, and it came up to the superintendent and also up to the, of course, bringing to the attention of the board. Obviously, the graduation is an operational issue and it really belongs to the department. And so the superintendent, of course, we didn't realize that, as the governor eases off on her conditions of readiness, or is it PCOR 3 and 4, So we have to plan accordingly and far out enough, Chris, because to plan for that large of graduating classes and stuff like that is, you can't just turn a switch overnight and say this is how we're going to do it. There's a lot of planning that leads up to that, but it also includes the input of our students. We have a student representative on the board, and these student representatives, the IBOGs, contribute to the conversation, and they give a monthly report to the board as part of their participation at the board level. And Ms. Gutierrez is actually the advisor for that group. So there's a direct link from the student leadership to the board, should they have any issues regarding, and of course, we would like to have the face-to-face graduations, but at this point, we're just going through the guidances from our public health and our partners.
Right on. And just to be clear, Mark, when we talk about return to face, that's for next school year.
Yes. So that's the pivoting of our thing. So this is right now a transition period for us. And then of course, during the summer school programs, just communicate with your schools. I asked the parents, the principals are willing and ready to respond to any of your questions specific to your schools. Oftentimes we'll get, some folks may want to reach out to board members specifically, but I always tell them, say, go talk to your administrator. They're going to give you a direct answer as to what is going on in their particular schools. Right. And that's the key. Right. And, but I got to say, whenever that's brought to our attention, we send it back to the superintendent for him to work with his management team to respond to that individual or the parent.
What are you anticipating, Mark, with just grading? Because I know earlier last year in the pandemic, John had come on and talked about, I don't know what else to call it other than like maybe mercy grading, right? And just factoring in how everybody was just dealing with this pandemic. Is it going to be similar with the grading for the end of the school year, or is it kind of like, okay, you guys got your pass?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I know it's kind of like performance based, right? And so my wife's a teacher too, so sometimes she tries to explain it to me. I'm like, wow, our teachers are awesome because they have to pivot and also make that change, right? Right. And so we've gotten to standard based grading, of course, but in addition to that, during this pandemic, it's the proficiency level of the student, and it's based on their performance. And so I do know that if there's going to be any changes to that, of course, it'll be brought to the board. So as it stands right now, it'll be status quo until it's brought to the board. And Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez briefs the board through the committee, which is led by Lou Beneventi. And so if any changes are going to come before the board, it's going to be vetted thoroughly by our stakeholders, the GFT, of course, and our parents, and and that's the key, is just getting everybody's input. It was very tough and very difficult, Chris, to pivot to that type of format. Yeah. But our team and our department felt that was the best way to kind of address that specific issue. And so, when the superintendent brought it to us for our basically sanctioning, if you will, on how they were going to proceed, the board, said, okay, we started asking the tough questions, and we made sure that there was input from all the stakeholders that needed to be asked their input. So yeah, so at this point, to answer your question, it's still a status quo until it comes from the superintendent to the community.
It's so unfortunate because I remember before the pandemic, I want to say 2019, I did a story on the test results. I want to say it was the ACT, and there were like areas where we were doing really good. Right. And elementary level. I mean, there were some obvious trouble spots, but there were also areas where there were, significant improvements that were made. And then the pandemic happened, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like
and that's the thing, when when you do these assessments, it basically gives you a snapshot of where we are as a district, and that's one of the reasons why we're reviewing the strategic plan. So that gives us an updated vision of where we need to be. And so, of course, with this pandemic, that's the reason why we're adding that additional summer school component for our students, and all those additional supports that are necessary. And so part of that funding that we are getting from the federal side is to also provide that additional supports for our students to get the additional support for their academics. And so those are the things that we're we're really going to focus on this strategic plan. And so that will be unveiled and rolled out. And that's just for the future moving forward, because obviously, you know, there may be in the near future, who knows, Chris, that we may be having online schools for those who just want to do online. You know, I mean,
Right.
it's open that type of discussion. And if you look at what's going on in throughout the world in other districts, school districts, you know, it's nothing unique that Guam is in the same situation, but it's how we're managing and how we're taking the resources to look beyond what we're currently faced with. And I think that's the key where the board is really saying, hey, Mr. Superintendent and team, we get it that we got this money to deal with this current situation, but when we start looking for the future, what is the department going to look like 5, 10 years from now without this funding? And that's the key, because obviously, when we start, like the governor's trying to reopen the economy, and GVB is trying to open up tourism, you know, we still also have to worry about the component within our government, which is to provide educational services to our students.
Yeah.
And so it goes hand in hand. But I just got to say that the superintendent has been meeting with the lieutenant governor, and the lieutenant governor has been a really good partner in ensuring that the Department of Education has a good you know, understanding with also what they're doing on that end, and then coming back to the department and saying, okay. And so there's active communication going on with the lieutenant governor and the superintendent, and then of course through the board.
When you talk about having to dust off the strategic education plan that you guys are going to release soon, what were some of the areas in the plan that had to be significantly improved upon, or just kind of like we're so dated that you're like, okay, that's out the window?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not, yeah, you know, from just some of the discussions we're looking at, of course, you brought it up about the assessments, the test scores,
Yeah.
you know, and so we said that, you know, a certain percentage of students are going to be able to perform at this level, right? And so, you know, with the collection of data, and then also our graduation rates, our retention rates. So if a freshman comes in, is that freshman making it to his senior year? And if not, what are we doing to do those interventions so that we can ensure that they graduate? And then also the other partnerships that we have with GCC and the University of Guam, that's another key component, right? So you're looking at all these different partnerships that we have out there, and how do we retool them so that we can ensure that, you know, we're taking the data that we have, and then we're putting it to something that we can measure it upon, and to see really how the Department of Education is doing. And so the superintendent always provides that yearly educational report, and it gives the numbers and the data. And so, you know, we're tracking. But the other thing too, really, Chris, is also in terms of our safety and the facilities of our schools. A lot of our schools are kind of old. So we have Simon Sanchez, you know, that's on the plate for the rebuilding. And so we were briefed on the board that Simon Sanchez in the design phase, and the designer was selected, and they're going out there. And so we got to start looking at some of the other schools that need in dire need of you know, some support in terms of their facilities, but also in terms of you know, just everything that's connected to education.
Well, good talk, Mark. Anything in closing here?
Yeah, I just want to thank the parents. You know, without their you know, support, but of their kids, you know, we would not be able to do what we're doing. So continue to just stay informed with the notices coming out from your schools. And if you have questions specifically to your school, communicate with the administrator. They're your first line to provide the information to you real time. And, you know, of course, through the superintendent's office, when it comes to board activities or board, you know, we'll gladly send that information out to you. So our goal is to really just work on our strategic plan, ensure that we're utilizing the federal funding resources that we're getting in the best possible way, so that we can think about, you know, the future of our Department of Education. So Chris and Donkalin and Sidus Masi for allowing me to come on board. I know I kind of got long-winded, but I'm excited about education, because a lot of usually when a natural disaster occurs, when schools open, people realize that, okay, we're going back to normal, and we're starting to go back to some sense of normalcy.
Right.
And I just want to thank our superintendent, his leadership team. You know, can't say enough about what they've been able to do, but also those people in the trenches, and our teachers, our faculty, and our administrators. Thank you very much for all that you do. And we'll continue in this journey together. and we'll continue to push on. So thank you very much.
Right on. And just so the superintendent John always comes on every Wednesday, but this week he wasn't able to come on because he's going around to the schools with his yardstick measuring. He told he's
Yes.
measuring the space between desks to make sure everything's compliant.
Yeah, and Chris, I think that's indicative of his leadership style.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's basically he's going out into the trenches, meeting with the staff that's out there, ensuring that they are heard, and that he's able to make decisions on the ground when it comes to dealing with specific issues at schools. Each school has a different dynamic, and anybody will tell you that. But when you get the head of the department or the agency going out there and reassuring his people that we have their best interests at heart, that's the best way to kind of have that communication. But I can say through the board, we have every stakeholder pretty much represented on that board. And sometimes we ask the superintendent those tough questions, and rest assured that, we'll continue that dialogue and we'll continue to push the Department of Education forward.
There you go. Mark Mendiola, Guam Education Board Chair. He is excited about education. Thank you, Mark.